Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
All right, we are back in full effect in the Detroit is Different podcast studios, and I'm here with somebody that is known when it comes to bringing people together. When we think of the anchor of Detroit is Different being culture, is somebody that definitely offers it all the time. And also he was like the gateway for me to kick it with Too Short one time, so that always sits in good regard for me. Shed, how you feeling, my brother?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
Oh, man, definitely, man. I want to get a lot of you all from the different promotion and brand ambassadors. It's almost like I don't even know how to label it, because what you do, I believe a lot of people don't necessarily have respect for, and there's a lot of people that do it that have completely sullied the reputation of what actually creating an event and bringing people together around food, music, entertainment is. So, man, applause for that for years, with different types of people, different type of venues. Let's start this off how I usually start it off. How did your family come to Detroit?
All right. Yep. I'm born and raised in the D.
Mm-hmm.
My family migrated from Florida. My mom came from Florida. My dad came from Georgia.
Okay.
And they came to D like most people looking for opportunity in the was that like the 60s or whatever like that.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of jobs in Detroit. So there was a lot of stuff you could do to work, make some good money as a person of African American background. And they did that. I mean, Detroit at one time it was like the black Mecca, right? Like kind of like how Atlanta is now. Detroit used to hold that title back 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah, 80s, some of the 90s actually. So with that, what neighborhood?
Oh, I'm Northwest Side all day. Well, I was born like in a real rough area of Detroit, like Dexter neighborhood.
Okay,
Dexter
that's
Davison.
not that far from. Yeah, that's like stone's throw from over here. Dexter Davison neighborhood.
Yeah.
You still got family around there?
Nah, man, nobody got family in Dexter Davison, man.
Okay.
Come on.
All right, what about Northwest and everything? Like, what was that like? What do you remember from that neighborhood as a kid?
No, it's a good area to grow up in. Being from Detroit, you get to see a lot of different sides, and you get to see the good, real positive, influential aspects of the city, growing up in the city, and then you get to see, at arm's length, like how things can go real bad, real quick. And Northwest Side, like I'm Livernois 6 Mile, because when you're from the D, you call McNichols 6 Mile, right? Mm-hmm. So Livernois 6 Mile is where I went, where I grew up. I went to Mumford High School. Mm-hmm. A lot of people be like, first of all, they think I'm from the burbs. I think I went to school, maybe in the burbs, whatever. No, I went to Mumford. I didn't go to Cass. I didn't go to Renaissance. Not even King. Mm-hmm. I went to Mumford. It was a good look to go there, believe it or not.
All right, so just being in that neighborhood, is a different. It's like a different feel too. Like when you think about that, because it's also like a college corridor too, with Marygrove, U of D not being so far from there, and then also like most Mumford Mustangs, that was like an artsy school, like in the hood. It seemed like for some reason a lot of artists, dance programs, band programs, singers.
Yeah.
I mean, and then everybody that went to Mumford was like, Eddie Murphy went here, and it's like Eddie Murphy didn't go there, but
Axel Foley did.
Yeah, Axel Foley did go to Mumford because Jerry Bruckheimer actually did go to Mumford. If most people know it, the producer of Beverly Hills Cop. But yeah, every Mumford Mustang gonna tell you that. So that's definitely one of those cool things. Entrepreneurship. Because that's the gateway of how I met you and connected with you. Did you have that in your family? Did you see that growing up?
No, not really. I mean, to be real with you, man, if you live in the D, you gotta you got to do something and do something and do something. You got to always have an angle. You got to have a hustle, right? So it's all about how you can focus your craft, focus your skills, the things to do, right? A lot of times it's just a hobby, right? You know, people do things that they're either passionate about or things that, you know, just, you know, they enjoy having that thing occupy their time. So my focus was, you know, to get a college education. I went to Michigan State University, so I'm a Spartan. And, you know, to graduate, get a good employment, and that was life. You know what I mean? That's how you think of it. You did what you needed to do, you know, so that you weren't doing what, you know, some of the people who you grew up with were doing, so you can get out of that element and just move forward. But through learning, interaction, networking with different people within those circles, I mean, you become product of your environment, right? So you meet a lot of dynamic individuals who do a lot of stuff, like real awesome type stuff. So, you know, I went to school at Michigan State with people who, you know, started influencing and teaching me things, right? You know, bestowing upon you different ways to look at life. And it's cool. And you don't think nothing of it. You're just a kid, you know, you're just a kid, just, you know, learning your way. You know, you got to get through school, and that's tough enough to try to, you know, be able to keep from failing and to graduate, be successful. But then you learn things along the way, you know, just like somebody in prison learns how to be a even extended criminal. You know, you go into circles of people with education who are uplifting and really highly intelligent, and they rub off on you too. So you look at any successful individuals, people who are doing things that you might hold in high regard, and I bet you the people who they associate with, the people in their circles, are going to be just as dynamic and doing some incredible things as well. So I just got lucky to be in the right place at the right time to at least put myself in a position to be able to go to university, to get an education. I graduated engineering, and so I started working at Chrysler, automotive, like most people in Detroit. You know, you go, you work in the automotive industry. That's the heavy influence here. And it's about side hustle, right? So you could do what you do, wake up, go to work, go home, repeat, right? But you got a lot of free time in between, and how you take that time is all up to you. You can go to the club, party, blow your money at the bars and restaurants, or you can figure out how you can invest in yourself and invest in a vision or plan or something that you want to create, and you build on it. So my creations were real estate development. Obviously, we're in Detroit, and everybody, if you somewhere else in the country and you say you're from Detroit, oh, is it true you could buy a house for $5? Yeah, you can. You can buy a house for $5, you know, but you could buy one for $50,000 too. So I got involved with real estate, and a lot of people who I was associated with. I'm an Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity incorporated, and a lot of my bros in the circles were heavy into real estate. And as a young, you know, recently graduated college grad, and then around the circles of people who are older, connected through fraternity, they were saying, hey, this is the new move. You buy property, you buy houses, you fix them up, you rent them, you flip them. This is how you could do it. We'll give you the tools, resources, show you how to do it. Once again, circles of influence of people to show you ways that you can, you know, create hustles for yourself. And the more you hustle, the more you learn about life, the world, and yourself.
So those properties that you bought, what neighborhoods were you buying properties in?
Man, my first property I bought on the east side of Detroit, and I'll be honest, I'm one of those West Siders who don't really know much about the east side, can't navigate on the east side, you know, back before GPS.
You were getting lost every time.
Man, it'd be a map. I'd have a map just to know how to ride around on it, because the east side streets don't go north and south. It's diagonal.
And then
everything
you may
diagonal.
run right into the airport, and you're like, oh, man.
Yeah, so
like, I was just on Outer Drive. How am I on Outer Drive and
exactly.
Outer Drive?
Right, Outer Drive and Outer Drive. And it was like, I know 7 Mile. Okay, yeah. I know 7 Mile. Right, and that's all you got. You see 7 Mile, right? But so my first property was like Warren and Connor.
Okay.
And obviously I got no business on Warren and Connor, right? Anybody who comes from that area knows that everybody from that area know everybody. And if you ain't from that area, you ain't from that area.
You're not from around.
You ain't from there. You didn't go to Finney. Yep. You ain't got no business over Warren and Connor. So, but anyway, I bought my first property there. I think I bought it for like $5,000. It was something like that. It might have been even cheaper than that, man. It was a real inexpensive property, but it was my first
It was your first investment.
It's the first investment. It's like, man, I got me a crib, now I got to put some money in and fix it up. And, you got that dream, right? You see other people do it. So you have the wherewithal to understand there's a process to be able to be successful. You do everything, you put all this money into it. You're like, man, I'm gonna get some renters in this house. And you're just excited about it. You go home, you wake up, you come back to, finish the renovations. You realize that somebody took everything out the crib, everything.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And you have to just be ready, like mentally, to just know that, certain elements, certain things that you have to deal with and that you can come back from it.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot about life, about being able to be resilient and to, be able to hit roadblocks, and for someone to tell you that you can't do something or I'm going to take something from you, and for you to still stand your ground and be able to overcome all of that adversity.
And definitely in entrepreneurship, one of the key things I often tell people is nobody's in business to help you make money. So it's a lot of people in business that will, give you ideas, but every idea is going to cost you money. And sometimes that person putting in the hot water tank may be the person walking out with that hot water tank the next week. Yeah. So being mindful of what industry to get in. And as you talk about the resilience, the business people I honor most are the people that stay in business the longest. And that's why I tip my hat to you and Drake's and the people, and Darnell Macon, definitely your homie, that do this for a long time. So from real estate, how did you end up getting into events and things like that?
Well, real estate was real good. The whole objective was to own 10 properties. If you could own 10 properties, you were pretty much a millionaire, right? Mm-hmm. And the game was, to fix up the houses, get the appraisals, pull out equity, and use that to get more properties, and then pull out more equity. And
to get better properties.
You get better properties, you upgrade, you get renters, you flip it, you make money. And so all in all, if you were able to get to 10, then you was booming. Right. Because now, real estate, what's different about real estate is that it's not just something for the moment. It's an appreciable valuable asset.
And wait, now what he's speaking on, if you don't understand this, let me be direct to my people listening to this. An appreciating asset. This is definitely an accounting term, but it's something that appreciates in value, meaning that even if you don't do anything to a home, it's going to raise in value as things go. Unlike a car, which is a depreciating asset, meaning that even if you put the best rims on it, the best sound system, no matter what, the car is going to continue to lose money. As they say, the minute it drives off the lot, the minute you break ground on a home, it continues to appreciate in value.
Yep. Very good assessments for those people who don't understand the difference between an appreciable asset and something that is
appreciating,
just straight expense, right? Mm-hmm. So from my standpoint, that was the goal. It's just be driven to do the real estate, because being in Detroit, we had a unique opportunity that we had the access to be able to go out there and to get property, to fix it up, rent it, flip it, or things of that sort. As everyone who's, I guess, old enough to know, the economy and things changed around, like about 2007. You start seeing it.
Yeah. It was kind of headed that way. Like I knew the height of something was going on, because there was somebody I knew that she just graduated from high school at 19, and she was like, I'm in real estate now, I flip houses. So it was like almost everybody was talking about flipping houses. Yeah. They had an Escalade and they was flipping houses. It was like they flipped a house, they got an Escalade. And I'm like, something's interesting going on with this real estate. And then soon after, like around 2005, 2006, 2007, definitely 2008.
By then it was the writing was on the wall, and things had changed, and it changed hard. And so people who lived during that time period, I think that there's more to their character, because they had to deal with some real tough situations. The country went into a real recession, right? And here I was, college graduate, good job, great job, a booming business in real estate, and then everything just like in overnight fashion just turned. And, all those things that I've been learning had to put into action now, right? How to be resilient, how to bounce back when something happens. So property value, didn't appreciate, and then you had to make some tough decisions about what you're going to do about those properties. Banks were
And
pulling out the loans you'd taken, those equities you pulled out now became term loans.
And what you're talking about is people talk about your home being underwater or your home being upside down, meaning you owe more on the home than the value of the home.
And that happened to a lot of people. So you had to make a decision to let it go or, just hold on to it. So in my case, I had quite a few properties at the time, and I had to make some calculated decisions. The property I had on the east side being the first one that I bought was kind of sentimental for me, but I should have let that go. That should have been the first thing I let go. But, you get caught up like, hey, I didn't spend that much money for it. I could hold on to it as a sentimental thing. Man, I should have just let that thing go. It drained me. It didn't drain me, but it just drugged me, and I didn't have to let it drag me. It's just, you have to just always be willing to accept change, right? To adapt to, changing conditions and situations, and not to just get caught so much in something that this is the way you do things or this is how you feel about something. You have to be able to stay adaptable to your environment that changes. And so I eventually changed, and I had some houses Northwest side that were, really, really good. And so I kept on those, and I put my resources into that.
Now,
from a real
what you're
estate standpoint.
speaking about in business is the other thing. And this is I guess you could say the cruelty or sometimes the sadness of America is that the Chinese proverb, in crises comes opportunity, because there was a lot of great homes that people were walking away from. Like, it was a point in time where you probably could walk into Sherwood Forest and get one of the best homes you could think of for a couple $1,000s.
There was a lot of that Sherwood Forest property
Palmer
flipping
Woods.
and buying, and it had a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff was
Rosedale
real
Park.
sticky for those people who know what I'm talking about. If you did anything over in Sherwood Forest, those were the properties that, the feds were
And it was
very much involved with what's going on with these business transactions.
Yeah.
And there was some real suspect activity going on, and the big people, the people who started this thing, I'm be careful with the words that I choose with it. But, those people got in, got out, they lived fat, and everyone else who followed behind them, had to deal with the wrath of what was coming for some of the things that some people were involved with. Fortunately for me, I always did everything above ground, the things that I was involved with. I try to never get involved with some things that, I got to look over my shoulder. Is somebody going to catch me on something? I mean, I only want to be involved with positive situations. And so, I moved forward, and to this day, I still have appreciable assets, but not nearly to the level of what I had back, in the early 2000s, whatever you like that.
But you live, you learn, and you move with the flow of business. But right now, like, that's around the time when I met you too, and you were starting to do different events and offering that into that world. And how did that lane open up, or how did you explore that business opportunity?
Well, it's all part of my story, when my objective to going to university, getting a degree, was to work and have a good job, to be, like an adult. But then I got the hustle, and the point of the hustle was, to, both have a job and to create, financial security for me and one day a family or something like that would happen. But then when things turned south, then it was like to say, hey, I've got a different skill sets that I can put into action, because this property thing isn't doing what I thought it was going to do, isn't doing what I needed to do right now because of the economic conditions that's happening. But I know something that I can do that is going to still be good, even though everything else is going bad. And a skill set that I learned in college was putting together events and parties. And helping people to have a good time. And so I transitioned out of the real estate development, no longer a real estate mogul, and into the party game. We'll call it that. And so I got into the party game. So some people will say I never left it, But it was a very conscious decision. And once I graduated from college, I mean, when I was at Michigan State University, we used to do a lot of events. We used to do a lot of parties. Everyone in Michigan State who was there during a period of time knew, like, okay, Michigan State was the place you had to go to. It was the party school. And I was in the middle of that, you know, as being the party mecca of the state of Michigan. And people, even from other states, would come out like, oh, man, there's a party at Michigan State. We going to it. And I was probably involved with it. So I switched out of real estate, back heavy into parties. But, you know, it's a huge transition, right? It's, you know, when you're doing parties with kids, like 18 and under, college type parties, it's not the same thing when you're doing 21 and up. It's not the same game. It's completely different. And a lot of people who do parties in college, they can't make that transition into the adult party world because it is different and you have to be able to adjust and adapt. And so I was able to successfully adjust and adapt, but I started small, right? And I told people who want to get into the game that, you know, you have to start small. You build up your base, you build up your brand of who you are and what people can expect from an event that you host. You don't necessarily need to join up with a bunch of other people to say, hey, we did a big party. When you get more value, equity in your own brand, when you create something, even if it's a party with only 50, 60 people, you can do a lot better with a 50, 60 person party in an adequate space than doing a 500 person party with a whole bunch of people and your brand is never realized. So I try to teach as much as possible, try to mentor, you know, people out here trying to get into entertainment and doing things, hosting events, that you have to build your brand. Your brand has to be unique to you, and people have to want to like your brand, thus like you, and that you should spend the time in building that and helping people to have a good time the way that you want them to have a good time and not just coming together just in numbers. It's cultivating an environment that people want to be in.
So cultivating and building, what I usually say is it's the experience, because that's why a person's getting out the house. And some of the events more so, and I think, you know, different people like have different flows. So right now, as I'm growing in age and everything, but like almost from, what would I say, maybe like 27 to 31. I mean, I would show up at one of your events at least once every other month, you know. But I thought that for me, that was like my flow, my age when I was in the mix of that, you know. So like even knowing that mix, and it was always an experience, a different call to action, a different theme, and your brand kind of laid an essence of what the event was, you know, like, you know, being at some of the events you do, you look up and it's like, man, that's Rip Hamilton from the Pistons over there, you know, but it would be cool. I guess it wasn't in today's era where everybody was like, let's do a selfie. I don't know. We had camera phones, but it wasn't, I guess, Instagram. Yeah. It was like, okay, Rip's over there, but it's cool. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's touch on that a bit about how things have changed significantly, right? So when I got into the party game, it was wide open. I mean, there were some groups that did parties, and people would go to their parties because they're doing the event. And that's how I learned. It's like, you know, people got to want, you have to be known, and people have to know you. And so the name of my company that I formed, I did it with my frat brother, Eric Hamilton. It was called singlesdetroit.net. And we had a niche. We just said, hey, we're going to bring people together. We're going to do things like speed dating. We're going to help people to interact socially with each other. And people are going to want to come into the spaces that we're hosting because they know that they're going to meet other cool, interesting people. Mm-hmm. And that was the niche. And people liked it, right? Because now it's not just about coming and just being there. It's about coming and the actual engagement. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did. And so that built a base. And so I would hear people say stuff like, oh, I'm going to a shared event. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we started saying. Yeah, I didn't even know you had Eric as a partner. It'd be like, yeah, we going to shed thing.
Yeah, so like, we're going to a shared event, right? So I'm like, man, it's like, you know, and then it's just more and more. It's like shared events, right? Whose party's that? Oh, no, shared event. You knew what to expect for it, right? What I was known for was that it was going to be girl heavy. It was going to be a lot of ladies. They were going to be educated, sexy, and most likely drunk, and they could be dancing on the bar. Right, I hooked up with my partner, brother from another mother, Ellis Hayes the second, and that helped escalate things. The whole movement. We had a whole Detroit movement. Like, people were talking about us, our events, our parties, and what was happening in Detroit. They were talking about it in other cities, other states, whatever, because it was just that phenomenal, right? We were doing a party. We came up with the title of the party, which now people still say, "Oh, you remember that? Free Love Fridays." Right? So we said, let's just call the party Free Love Fridays. And people are like, what does that mean? Like, you come out and you find out, right? And you walk into that party, Free Love Fridays. It was just like all the movers and shakers in the city. You know, this is during the time when people had money. You know, people was living life, like, for real. You know, like, so Poppin Bottles was like nothing. It was just automatic. You know, hey, give me a bottle of this, give me a bottle.
It was a lot of people. It was a lot of men trying to keep up with the Joneses, probably popping bottles, not paying rent, connected to that
bottle though. It was popping the bottle because it's like you just had to do that because the way it worked back then is that whoever was popping bottles had the girls, right? Because the girls saw who was popping bottles, and you got the bottles so the girls can sit with you in your booth or whatever, because that's who they were going to sit with, whoever's got the bottles. You know, now, you know, girls have to pop their own bottles, but back then it was just like, hey, we got the drink, and then the girls would get, you know, tipsy, and then they dance on the furniture, dance on the bar, dance on speakers. I mean, let's be serious. We were doing a party in a hole in the wall club that should have been condemned the first day that we were doing the parties. But the people, the caliber of people who attended these parties were, you know, the best of Detroit. And they came there because it was a place that they knew that they would be safe and that they would have a great time. You know, people didn't come in with foolishness. It was just all about, look, man, we about to come meet some people. The girls went there because we gonna meet somebody. The guys went there because we definitely gonna meet some nice ladies. So it was a movement. It was a movement, and it all came out of the resilience of doing one thing, which was the real estate that didn't work out due to the economic conditions of America, into like, okay, now doing something that was resilient against what was happening in the rest of the world as far as the economy.
Now that call to action, like, what type of database were you building over time? Because, like I say, I would maybe come every other month, and I'm pretty sure most people would. You may have that one faithful person that comes every time, but average, you know, I assume most people, even if they clubbing, they come in, you know.
Man, people came a lot, and the database grew. What I realized early was that the power was in the information. And getting connected to people, because this is before social media, right? We went from Black Planet
to MySpace,
right? And, you know, that was the social connection, was MySpace. So you start to know people by what their MySpace profile was.
Yep.
Like, it was girls who was just like, you know, the social media, like you call them Instagram models now, but like on MySpace, they were all of that. Like MySpace model, man, that girl could be in the club. You're like, oh my gosh, she's on MySpace.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and they would come to our parties. They would come to our events, whatever. And be honest, like, some of these girls were like really, really pretty, but socially awkward individuals, but they were tech savvy enough to build up their world, which was on MySpace, to make themselves look like just, you know, something out of this world. But they were just regular people, and some of them had, you know, regular people issues, but they built themselves up through social media, the beginning of social media, to be, you know, bigger than life.
And this was like a start of so much that has changed, as I even look at my younger cousins that have grew up their whole life with social media. And it's just unique, just their social like, you know, the way they communicate and interact and engage.
You say engage, man. You take one of these Instagram models now and you put her in a room and have a conversation with her. There's a pretty good chance that she's going to be socially awkward, or she's not going to be
to us.
Yes.
I talk to my little sister all the time. Like, one time we were in the car having a conversation, and it's like, we in the texting stage. She was talking about a guy she's dating or whatever. And I'm like, so you don't have a phone conversation with him? Like, no, we got to build up the phone. I'm like, wouldn't you want to at least have a conversation before? It's like, to me, that's the backwards way. But I'm older. Like, it seems like you would start with conversation to know, like, who are you, before I can just text you all day in this weird cycle of, I don't even know how to respond to a text, you know?
They don't. I mean, we went from like, hey, give me your phone number.
Yeah.
Let me write your phone number on a piece of paper, on a napkin or something like that. Okay, I'll call you.
Yeah.
to now, then people say, hey, just text me, to now you in the club or somewhere.
Give me your IG.
It's the IG name. Like, so it's like, all right, we can communicate this way. I'm like, and like me, like I'm an OG in the game. So I'm looking at someone, how am I supposed to remember your IG name?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to remember your IG name.
And then I got to search you. And then it's like, I'm looking at your profile picture. It's like, is that you?
It's just,
it's
they don't get it. Like, I don't care. Your name is smiley face, 1, 2, 3,
underscore,
something like that. Oh, and use special hashtag, under tag. Like, no. What's your name? What's your number? Let me keep it moving because I already got 50,000 contacts in my 3 phones. I mean, I ain't got time to be trying to remember. To store phone numbers and IG handles.
And which that kind of brings me to the next level of this because, they say it's the best form of flattery, imitation. Because oftentimes, and I've, as in me doing events, because I've always done it different tied to music, but one of the things that I've learned is like, I'll work with a place and then I'll do a couple of events there and then they'll raise the rates or twist my arm, but basically the relationship didn't stay and then the venue tries to mimic what I'm doing, and I've definitely seen that with you oftentimes. How did you handle the imitation and people mimicking and trying to recreate some of the things you were building and creating?
Hey, I'll be honest with you. I've learned at an early stage that in your process of growth, information, knowledge should be shared. The only way that you grow is the more that you share.
Okay.
And so when someone mimics, imitates, steals something that I've created or, conceptually that I've helped develop, yes, it is the highest form of flattery. And I look at it as what they're doing is what I did, right? I'm growing. So what I did is old now. And so what I'm doing is what's the new thing. And so anything that I put together and someone can duplicate it, imitate it, and, basically jack it, that's cool because that's the old stuff. Like for what I'm doing new, you can't keep up with that.
Wow.
And so that's the way I have to look at it, because there's nothing you can do, no copyright protection, court orders that can keep someone from liking your style and mimicking it, right? All you can do as an individual entity or what have you is to continue your growth, right? You never stop growing. You never stop striving or reaching. You see that and you don't think twice about it. When you see, ads or whatever saying, hey, keep reaching or keep higher going, What I did today is already old. What I'm doing tomorrow doesn't exist yet. And so what I'm on is what I'm doing in the future. And so what things you might mimic or try to jack from me right now is my old stuff.
So it's almost like what Jay-Z said, you want my old stuff, buy my old album. So it's almost that you take that flattery in stride and say, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and because that's all part of like staying one step ahead of the game or doing things that are years ahead of where people can really comprehend and react or understand what you are trying to do and what you are doing. A lot of things I've been involved with have been on, levels that are like, a few years ahead of their time. The whole reality show thing, like we had a little reality show called Detroit After Dark, and we did this in 2007, 2008, way before our time, right? The whole reality thing didn't blow up until like maybe 2010.
Yeah, 2010.
And so we were like too early, right? And then the other thing is that we were trying to put together a show and we were trying to shop the content to networks, right? We were trying to shop it to like, hey, we want this network, we want MTV, we want BET for them to pick up this reality show. Now people create a show and they say, I'm my own network.
Yeah.
I don't need.
What I'm doing with Detroit is different. I'm going to create my own vehicle.
Yep. And that was, if I'd have knew that, hindsight's 2020, of course. If I'd have knew then back in 2007, 2008, 2009, instead of trying to sell to a network or distribution source, to create your own. Right, but we just didn't have the resources then.
Yeah,
right?
It's more tools, like those tools and what I'm doing, and I'm definitely not one to say that it's easy, but in some ways I kind of feel like you, because it's a lot of people that see what you're doing is like, I can do that, But the toughest thing of doing this is actually continuing to do it. And as you continue to do it, that's the other thing in that world of offering partying and entertainment events. Like me, you have a group of people, but they may age out, and then you need to reach that new group of people. How have you dealt with that flow of creating, something that engages the audience that's there, knowing that you need to be welcoming that new audience that will need to come?
Man, I tell you, it's a secret that's not really a secret, and it's something that people just can't really get a handle on. We get so caught up in us as ourselves that we're the reason why people are coming out or doing something or involved with it. It's because of you. Your personality is what you create or have to create, the idea, and that's the first step in branding. You're creating a brand. Mm-hmm. But your brand should be bigger than you as an individual. Mm-hmm. So in my journey through, the party guy world, I reached a point when I realized that parties were not where it's at. It's not about the party. It's not about, hey, I'm going to be in a nightclub till I'm 50 years old, partying. Mm-hmm. That's not what it was. It's about how can you create something that's so bigger than who you are, and people forget what your name is or never even meet you or know anything about you, but something that you create and that you do is so big that people all over the world know about it and they can relate to it no matter what their age is. And so it's the evolution from doing something where it's all about you to doing something where it's all about the brand, right? And so that was the creation of MLK Ski Weekend, a niche event that didn't have a lot of competition because it's obviously something inherently different from what we're going to do. And so I tell anybody who's trying to get into doing something, look to see where, there's opportunity because there's nobody else doing it. Yeah. Or it's something that you can get people interested in. Whether you're here, like you're in the city of Detroit, right, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to run a soccer program, right? Yeah. Yeah, soccer is something that they do all over the world, but, how much are they doing it in the city? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The city of Detroit. So there's a niche that you can capitalize on doing something that there's resources for you to be able to be successful in the creation of it, but there's not a lot of other static, trying to do the exact same thing you're doing. Mm-hmm. So this whole MLK Ski Weekend came about. I started getting involved with that early, like, around 2004. And it was just kind of like, it's something that I participated in, and I really liked it. I liked the people who participated in it. I liked the people who, how it changed their life in the way they thought. And then the type of caliber of people that participate in something like this. It's something like, it's not a typical thing you could do. It's like, yo, I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to connect with the people who I met at an activity event like this. And so it was exciting. And so I got involved with it. I took it over because the originators who started it couldn't keep up with the demand.
Capacity of it.
It wasn't even that it was getting big, because it wasn't really that big. It was just they didn't use the resources and tools that technology had brought to the market to be able to effectively to do talents. Man, it's like, first of all, you got to be technologically savvy, right? Yeah. During this time when I started doing MLK Ski Weekend, no one would buy anything on the internet. No one would put their credit card on the internet. Mm-hmm. People didn't want to go to websites. They wanted to meet at the mall, shopping center, give you a check that would bounce, and you wouldn't even know that it bounced until weeks later, after they've already been on the trip and and then got back and like, oh man, your check bounced. Like, oh, for real?
Oh, for real? They know that. They write that check like,
they knew it was gonna bounce, and so they just had a great time, and they will not give you your money. So the point is online transactions, right? Yep. It was new, and people told me like, I will never put my credit card on the internet because someone will steal my credit card number and take all my money. Yep. I will never do that.
I remember those days.
And it's like, look, the only way I'm doing business with people from all over the place is if they do online transactions, because people are going to come from all over the world. They can't meet me at Northland, right? Northland ain't even there. You know what I mean? You can't meet me at Northland. Northland ain't there, but the online transaction still is, right? Uh-huh. So It's the development using technology and resources, and once again, like I said earlier, is being able to adapt to your surroundings, your environment, and to evolve. Right? It's not to get caught in doing things only one way, but to always constantly improve yourself, improve your situation. And what you did yesterday is old. What you're doing today is already obsolete, and what you're doing tomorrow is the new thing. MLK Ski Weekend is the new thing. So it's in its 24th year now, January 17th through 20th. We're expecting 3,000 people that are coming from all over the country and other parts of the world. And it was able to grow because my thought was, instead of doing parties for the purpose of getting door admission at parties, do parties for the purpose of getting information and branding for people to feel comfortable or to like your brand, to take them to a deeper level of a major event, which would be MLK Ski Weekend.
Wow, that's deep. That's deep, and yeah, I've watched it grow over the years, and it's definitely stretched to more and more people, to the point now where it's something that I know is connected to you and Darnell Macon, but like even the party where we just reconnected, where I'm like, man, I need to get you on Detroit is different. You're in there, and I'm like, man, this dude is like an OG, but the whole party's around you. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm like, I don't even know if people connect that this dude has a whole lot to do with this whole, you and Macon. Like, it's exactly like what you said.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is. Like, I didn't grow up saying, hey, when I grow up, I'm going to do this, right? Mm-hmm. You don't know where you're going to be, where life's going to take you. But what you do know is that you always want to be ready, right? As everyone say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Mm-hmm. And you have to be ready for when opportunity presents itself, because sometimes it only comes once, and you got that one shot. And so MLK Ski Weekend is something that has been able to not only be sustained, but to also grow. And it's still growing. It has no ceiling right now. People throughout the entire country know where it is, know what it's about. They could be from Florida, Texas, California, New York, D.C., Chicago, Tennessee. Doesn't matter. They've heard of it. They know about it. And if they haven't been to it, they at least are telling other people about it, or they're talking about it, or they're looking at images, they're looking at social media related to it, and they're providing more reinforcements for the brand. And so that's what I tell people. It's about building a brand that doesn't have to depend on who the individual is, but it's the brand itself that people have the interest in. Yep.
And then it also becomes a vehicle to connect that brand with other, I guess, businesses, other brands. It can become more of an asset, sort of like this. The NBA, for instance, is that as an association, but under that banner is the Detroit Pistons, the Chicago Bulls, or something like that. It's not like one of the things where, like, oh man, Mike, what's going to happen to the NBA when Michael Jordan no longer play? I remember that discussion. You remember that discussion.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you got Shaquille O'Neal, you got Kobe Bryant, you got all these other players. What's going to happen when LeBron retires? The NBA
is going to continue to evolve, and they're going to continue to do things in different ways to keep people engaged. It's a business, and it's a brand, right? It's a brand that understands that it's bigger than an individual.
Yeah. Unlike one of my favorite sports, and we got a big one coming up now, boxing, which I think definitely relies so much on the person that,
Boxing is still there?
What you're saying, yeah.
It's got how much more?
What you're saying, hey, I'm still a fan.
Hey, shouts out to my man Tony.
He gonna fight Charlo this weekend.
This weekend he's fighting. So yeah, he's the last part of boxing, right? I mean, obviously it's something that's very relevant for us in Detroit, you know. But the sport itself,
nothing like the other sports we've seen grow up. Yeah. And when we were younger, boxing was the sport.
Yeah, you had Tyson, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis. I mean, it's heavyweights. You had those big names and heavyweights.
But it relies so much on a person and not the brand that it disconnects, unlike with the UFC, which is the brand more than the person.
You don't even know the fighters in UFC. You just know the brand.
Yeah, people are just like, hey,
it don't even matter. I don't even matter who's fighting. We just know this is going to be a good show.
I'm going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I get to watch these people, and I don't know what country they from or anything. I don't know how old they are, but it's UFC night. I'm watching. So that's the brand idea. You know, where do you see everything going in the future with everything happening? Will it be? I know it's new ideas, but anything you willing to share?
I mean, constantly working on new stuff, where you could take things. I think that I've just been fortunate enough to, come across some real dynamic people, individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything that I've done and how I've been able to accomplish it definitely wasn't just like me waking up saying, hey, I can do this, right? It's being able to connect with people who help instill in me, vision, help instill in me, resilience, and being able to, come up with some new creative things. So where the future's going, it's just constantly evolving, right? Because once you figure out, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, then it's about moving on to the next thing. It just never stops. And that's one thing just to realize about the world is that, entertainment and how we live in this world is always gonna change. And for you to always just be open and use that old adage, if you stay ready, you never have to be ready. And that's where I am right now. I'm just always open and ready for the next thing, and when I'm doing the next thing, I won't even realize that this is the next thing. It's just taking everything that I've learned and being able to apply those principles into something that will hopefully become what everyone's calling the next thing.
Okay, classic Detroit is different questions I got for you. First one, your very first car. What year, make, and model was it? What year you get it?
First car was a Pontiac 6000. It was I think the year was a 86 Pontiac 6000. It was gray. I got it in 1992.
All right. Where was the first place you went when you got it?
Where'd I go? I don't know. I don't remember where I went in the car. I was just happy to have a car.
Okay. You was just happy to be rolling. You was happy to be rolling. I feel that. You are the DJ at the end of the Detroit fireworks. You're at Woodward and Jefferson. You can play 3 songs. What songs you playing?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I really wasn't ready for that one. I got to stay ready, but I wasn't ready for that one. I could play 3 songs.
Yep.
And this is at the fireworks.
Yep.
So the fireworks got
ended.
So this is like a real diverse crowd. So I want everybody to keep that in perspective for the stuff I'm going to come up with, that I'm thinking about, like who the audience is, right? Song number 1 will be Whoop, There It Is.
Okay. Okay.
I'll go from Whoop, There It Is to was that Kool and the Gang, Celebration?
Yep. Okay. People pick that song a lot, actually.
I mean that reminds me of the Boblo Boat. Now I'm really dating myself,
Mm-hmm.
Being on the Boblo Boat, that was the song they played every time on the Boblo Boat. Was Celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's some old school.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the third song would be trying to keep it diverse, right? Because with fireworks in Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
the new Detroit has changed. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We go with I don't know, man. Y'all gonna have to help me out with the third song, man. It'd be
Third
just
song?
like whatever. So, yeah.
Most people pick probably the most famous song would be September from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh my gosh. Now you on Shane Park now, man. You said this fireworks. I guess you're
I'm
at Shane
just
Park.
telling you that's what the most popular song is. But I don't know what I would play all songs for me. I would play Parliament. I play
That's okay. I mean, you could go some
Knee
George
Deep.
Clinton,
I play Knee Deep, but
but it definitely got to be something that can relate to everybody. Whether they're kids or they're real old people. If they're no matter what their background is, it's just certain songs that they connect to. I mean, what about that one song by Europe that the Pistons used to play all the time, The Final Countdown?
oh yeah, the Final Countdown. Yeah.
right. I am black, but I know that
It's the
that
Final
band is called
Countdown.
Europe, and it's called The Final Countdown.
I mean, it was the Pistons song, the same way that the Bulls. I mean, I tell people about like seeing Jordan on WGN. They had the dun 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 dun. I'm forgetting the name of that song, but you knew like that was the song. Like each stadium had a song back in the day.
Yeah, that's true.
Last question. You can rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be? Why?
Oh, Woodward.
Yep.
That's like the most prominent street in the city, huh?
Yep.
That's a tough one, man. Who I would name it after? I think like, people who have done a lot for the city. There's people who've stuck with the city, done their thing. Man, it's one name. Just trying to be funny, but I'll be serious. I mean, that's really a hard one, man. Who would be deserving? Because any name that you come out with, then is going to be like someone say, well, why would it be that person, instead of someone else? Or why would you choose that situation? Like in Detroit, you had guys like, real talk, like Malcolm X was influential in Detroit, big time, right? We don't really talk about as much about his, contributions to the city, but he brought a lot of people to the city,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we talked about, like people who came to Detroit and why they came to Detroit. A lot of people came to Detroit because Malcolm X was, in the city. So that would be a person of consideration. I guess my favorite mayor, some people might not like this, but my favorite mayor was Dennis Archer.
Mm-hmm.
He was my favorite mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did a lot to hold the city down during a time where, times were still good and, Detroit was, it was flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
It was flourishing. We talk about, how, we were getting it in and stuff like that. And of course, coming after him was homeboy.
Mm-hmm. My Mayor Kilpatrick.
Yeah, homeboy, frat brother, man. It's a frat.
Mayor Kilpatrick.
He down there in Dallas right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but no, I'd look at Malcolm X. Well, why not? We're a black city.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah, 80% still. Yep. There we go. Shed, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing some vision. You gave a lot of business perspective to folks. I hope people take some time out and learn about the resilience and the tenacity it takes to be in business and then just move. It seems like your journey has you in a path of constant growth.
You got to, man. You just keep striving and keep reaching.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.